Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into something today that literally every homeowner goes through, but nobody really talks about until they're on the other side of it. We're looking at the homeowner's perspective on rising equity. We've got some brilliant insights from REMAX Liberty today that map out the crazy psychological and financial rollercoaster of buying a home. We're going to shift our focus away from that sheer, panic-inducing stress of closing day and instead look at the long-term reality of rising equity. It's a massive time shift that completely changes how you view your biggest financial decisions. I want to start off with this quote. Nobody asks me 10 years later whether they paid $5,000 too much. They ask me how they ever managed to buy a house for that price. Now, when the folks at REMAX Liberty drop this line on their clients, they admit it usually just gets a polite laugh. It sounds like a real estate joke, right? But man, as time passes, you realize just how incredibly true it is. It absolutely nails the homeowner's perspective on rising equity. Just giving it a few years fundamentally rewrites the whole financial story. But hey, before we get to that glorious retrospective relief of building equity, we've got to talk about Step 1, Section 1, the initial sticker shock. Let's be totally honest here and validate what anyone feels when they first sign a mortgage. Buying a home feels overwhelmingly expensive. It is completely normal to look at the math and think, did I just make a huge mistake? Because almost everybody stretches a bit when they buy. Your new mortgage payment? Yeah, it might be higher than what you were paying in rent. That down payment? It feels like this massive, terrifying chunk of cash just vanished from your checking account. And those unexpected expenses, they literally pop up weekly. The water heater breaks, a pipe leaks, suddenly you need a lawnmower. It's a squeeze. It is stressful. You feel it in your chest, you feel it in your wallet, and that anxiety is just running so incredibly high right out of the gate.
And because your anxiety is maxed out, you hyperfixate. $5,000. Buyers will absolutely agonize over a negotiation difference of $5,000. Like, lose sleep over it. And honestly, that makes total sense, because in that exact moment, you are terrified of making the wrong move. When you're stretched that thin, every single dollar feels like a make-or-break metric. You are down in the weeds, fighting for every single inch.
But then, the dust settles. Section 2, when life happens.
Let's actually look at how this plays out on a timeline. In year 1, like we just talked about, you were deep in that financial stretch. But then, blink, and we hit year 5. Your income has probably changed, hopefully gone up, right? And all the while, you've been paying down that loan, chip by chip, every single month. Then, we hit year 10. Your home has likely gone up in value. And that crushing financial stretch you felt back in year 1, it is slowly, almost invisibly, faded into total normalcy.
Just look at the dual tracks of the housing market we have going on here. On the one side, you have the incredible stabilizing power of a fixed mortgage payment. It stays relatively flat year in and year out. On the flip side, you have the reality of the rental market where rents just continue to rise. So, while a renter is dealing with costs creeping up every year, a homeowner's baseline housing expense is locked in. What felt like a painful stretch on day 1 slowly becomes just normal. And eventually, as you watch rent prices totally skyrocket around you, that steady mortgage payment actually starts feeling like an absolute steal.
Which brings us to a really fascinating psychological shift. Section 3, the changing question.
Notice the total contrast in the internal monologue here. When you're house hunting, pretty much everyone focuses on one very reasonable, slightly panicked question. Am I paying too much? But fast forward a few years. As a homeowner sitting on rising equity, the question completely flips. You look around your neighborhood, you check out current market prices, and suddenly you're asking, wait, could I even afford to buy my own home today? I really want us to just sit with that pivotal question for a second. Could I afford to buy my home today? For a lot of people, looking back a decade later, the honest answer is a hard no. But here is the brilliant part about that. The answer isn't no because they messed up back then. It's no because they made a move that gave time a chance to work in their favor. By locking in their housing costs, they let the rising market build their wealth, instead of letting it price them out entirely.
And that leads us right into Section 4, time and rising equity. Now, look, this doesn't mean you should just throw caution to the wind and overpay for a house. Not at all. But the core truth is captured right here. Today's price often becomes yesterday's bargain. Obviously, a smart pricing strategy and careful negotiations are super important. You definitely shouldn't pay more than a home is actually worth in the current market. But, and this is a massive but, there's a huge difference between paying a fair price for the right home and completely losing out on that home because you were trying to save a relatively tiny amount of money up front. Real estate is wild like that. It's one of the few things you can buy where this rule consistently holds up over time.
So let's wrap this up by looking forward instead of backward. First off, none of us have a crystal ball. Nobody can perfectly predict what the market will do next year. That's just a given. Second, history consistently shows us that people remember owning the right home way, way longer than they remember the stressful details of closing day. And finally, buying a home isn't really just about what your payment is today. It's fundamentally about securing a place to live, while giving yourself the incredible opportunity to actually build equity over time. It's about letting the clock do the heavy lifting for your net worth.
I'm going to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Sometimes the best financial decisions don't feel obvious in the moment. They only become obvious years later. Let that sink in for a bit. The financial stress you might be feeling today, that is very often just the entry fee for the long-term empowerment of homeownership. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep this big picture perspective in mind, and I will catch you all next time.